Hello, welcome to another video from EarnPed.com. I'm Stevie B, happy to have you all with me today. Today I am on Next Island. We're overlooking this beautiful mountain view from high above Next Island. We are here at Sifferton Garden where we shot our last video. And today I want to make another video not just for CRP 2023, but this is going to be a very important video for the Next Island video playlist. This is going to be very important if you're new to Entropia, new to exploring Next Island, and hopefully this will help save you a lot of headache and confusion down the road. So this is the NPC we're going to talk to right here, 2419 Juliana 4, and you can find this NPC in various locations all over the planet. I'm not so interested in getting the missions today as I am just explaining, believe it or not, the lore behind Next Island. Now, lore is not something that I'm into. It's not something that I'm big on. It's not something I really care about or get any personal enjoyment out of it, so I don't spend a lot of time dealing with lore. However, in this case, we do need to know just a little bit to help us later on down the road. So first of all, when we click on Juliana here, it says Daily Multi-Faction Mission. Processing. Access to daily system approved. A choice between various limited tailoring blueprints with 5 clicks each will be given when a task is completed. That's great. Forget all that. The important part is what it says up here at the top. Daily multi-faction mission. So forget the rest of Entropia for just a second. And let's look at just Next Island. Because Next Island has its own planet-specific lore. And let's forget Ancient Greece for a second, and let's look at all these ones down below it. The important thing I want you to take away from today's video is not the fictionalized history of Next Island and all that. What I want you to take away from today's video is on Next Island, and only applicable to Next Island, is that there are 5 different quote-unquote factions on Next Island. Those 5 different factions are the Haruspex, the Loyalist, the New Elysian Order, which is oftentimes abbreviated NEO or Neo, Resa, and Stel. Now, yesterday I made a video about the new FAPs that they have, the limited FAPs, the EIR MK FAPs, and the weekly mission you can get for the blueprint that you can use to make the FAPs. And in the dialogue, when you were talking to the NPC, at the end there was kind of a smart aleck comment. It said, well, thank you so much for the work, Master. Stupid Neo jerk. That was a joke, a stab at the fact of that NPC is a Neo member, a New Elysian Order member. And they were calling them a Neo jerk, a New Elysian Order jerk. It had to do with the factions. It had to do with the lore between Next Island factions. And if you don't realize that there are different factions on Next Island, then these words get thrown around, these terms get thrown around, and you're like, what is a Stel? What is a Resa? What is a Neo? What is a New Elysian Order? These are all the same thing. They're factions. And they're Next Island specific. They don't have anything to do with Entropia universe as a whole. They don't have anything to do with any other planet. They are very specific to Next Island and the lore of Next Island. And the important takeaway I want you to get is that there's 5 of them, and that they're called the Haruspex, the Loyalist, the Resa, the Stel, and the 5th one is the New Elysian Order, which is oftentimes abbreviated NEO, N-E-O. Because you're going to see these terms come up over and over in mission chains, in NPC dialogues, in item names. So it's going to be important that you understand that these are factions. That's what's being referenced, and these are not just random words that have been inserted to make everything more confusing or to make it more discombobulated. Now, the reason Ancient Greece is on the list is because when we look at our map, we have Next Island, which this is the Next Island map, and then if we use our drop-down menu, we have Space and Ancient Greece. Ancient Greece is only accessible from Next Island. I can't go to another planet and access Ancient Greece. It is part of Next Island. So if we're at Next Island, most of you will already know this, but we can go to Orpheus Cave, which is over here, and we can use Orpheus Cave to enter ancient Greece. So because of that, it's not really a faction. I don't consider it a faction. I don't think the lore officially considers it a faction. Ancient Greece is more of a completely separate dimension, but it's in the multi-faction system. And I could be wrong. Maybe Ancient Greece is actually a quote-unquote faction. I just don't see it as a faction since it's kind of its whole different area. So now that I've shown you this, I'm actually going to take you to Orpheus Cave and show you Ancient Greece here in a second. But I want to explain why this is important. Not only is it in names and missions and stuff like that, each of those factions have their own VIP. And the only way I can explain VIP is it's like each faction has its own clubhouse. So this is the entrance for the Neo or New Elysian Order VIP, and its clubhouse is actually underground. You would have to take this televator down to get there. However, there's a mission chain that you have to go through in order to get access to this VIP. Each of the 5 VIPs have their own clubhouse, quote unquote, their own VIP. And each of these factions VIPs have their own mission chain that you have to do to be able to get order to that VIP, to that quote-unquote clubhouse. Whenever you get access to those VIPs, to those quote-unquote clubhouses, then you will actually be able to interact with NPCs that will give you special daily or weekly missions that are only accessible to people that have that VIP access. And sometimes those missions have incredible rewards, incredible opportunities, and there may be future potential for even more content that is only available to people who have all of those faction VIPs. So that will be important in future videos. We will cover each VIP in its own video, each mission chain for each VIP, and then obviously we'll talk about the rewards and stuff. Now if I come to Orpheus Cave, I can actually use my drop down menu, click on Ancient Greece, and I can go to the Orpheus Cave in Ancient Greece. I can teleport in, and we'll cover this again in a different video also, but I want to explain a little bit about Ancient Greece real quick since we're talking about the lore. And when I teleport in, I'm in Orpheus Cave, but now I'm in an Orpheus Cave on Ancient Greece. So what's the deal? Notice we've got the shield over here, we've got the pottery, we've got an access to a Colosseum instance, and then when we go outside, this doesn't look like Next Island at all. We've got ships in the harbor. It looks like I've been teleported to Ancient Greece. What's the deal? But why is there an Orpheus Cave on Ancient Greece, and why is there an Orpheus Cave on Next Island? Because according to the quote-unquote lore, we've essentially just time traveled. So again, I don't get big into the lore. I would get a lot of it wrong if I tried to tell you guys all the little details, but essentially the thought was that whenever you were going from one Orpheus Cave to another, you weren't going from one Orpheus Cave to another. You're staying in the same Orpheus Cave. These are both the exact same Orpheus Cave, which is why to get back and forth between Next Island and Ancient Greece, you have to use Orpheus Cave. If you notice on my teleporter list, to get back to Next Island, the only teleporter I can use is Orpheus Cave. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying in the same Orpheus Cave. I'm just traveling through time. And this is a concept unique in Entropia universe, that essentially when you go to Ancient Greece on Next Island, you're not going to a different place. You're still on Next Island. You're just going to a very, very ancient version of Next Island, which is why whenever you come back, notice whenever I come back to Next Island, I've still got a pillar over here that looks like it's from Ancient Greece. I've got one here that looks like it's from Ancient Greece but broken. I've got another piece of it over here. The cave even looks a little bit the same. You can still see the pottery from Ancient Greece is broken and laying around. But when I go outside, now I'm not in Ancient Greece. Now I'm in modern day Next Island. And yes, the camera does this little shaky cam thing every time you go in and out of Orpheus Cave. Now there's no harbor. Now the planet's been terraformed. Now there's no ships. Now it's just Next Island. So it's the exact same Orpheus cave. I'm not going to a different location, which is usually what a teleporter does. I'm actually traveling through time and going back into an ancient version of Next Island. That is what the quote-unquote lore will tell you. And actually, whenever the game very first came out, when Next Island was very first created, there was actually a more in-depth process you had to go through in order to get to ancient Greece. You had to have a blueprint and create an item that allowed you to do time travel. It was a whole thing. They ended up doing away with that, but we'll cover that in a future video as well, because it will still be important to know and preserve for history, even though it's no longer used in game. But the biggest takeaway is I wanted you guys to know that if you don't look at Entropia as a whole, if you look only at Next Island, and you do look at the lore, in the lore you will see that Next Island has these 5 factions: Stel, Resa, Neo, Loyalist, and Haruspex. And that each of those has their own clubhouse, which is called a VIP. Each VIP clubhouse has a mission chain you have to do to get access, and once you have access, inside you will find NPCs with unique missions, unique mission rewards, unique dailies, weeklies, stuff like that, and there's future development planned even after you've got access to all 5. And then I also wanted you guys to understand that when we're talking about ancient Greece, we're not necessarily talking about a faction, we're not even necessarily talking about a different place, we're talking about the same Next Island, the same Orpheus cave. We're talking about traveling through time. It's the only teleporter in game that doesn't take you from one spot to another. Every other teleporter takes you through space. The teleporter in Orpheus cave takes you through time. Same Orpheus cave, different time period. So I'm going to leave it there. I know it's a little bit shorter video than usual, and I know I didn't go into the lore and explain which factions are at war with each other and how all the factions came to be and all that. I'm not going to. Like I said, I'm not big into lore. If you guys want to learn more about the lore of Next Island, feel free to research the entire history of all those factions on your own. The biggest thing is I wanted you to know that these factions exist, that they're part of the lore of Next Island, that they are specific to Next Island. They don't have anything to do with other planets. And I wanted you to understand that ancient Greece is just an older, ancient version of Next Island and not a different area completely, because knowing these things is important to the missions, the mission dialogue, the mission chain, and the in-game items you're going to see. If we go to auction, we can see that whenever I pull up auction, the very first thing that I see is Haruspex Voodoo Vest. Well, why is it called a Haruspex Voodoo Vest? Why isn't it just called a Voodoo Vest? Was Haruspex just put in there to confuse us and to make everything more disconnected and more discombobulated? No. It's telling you that this Voodoo Vest is specific to this particular Next Island faction. This Voodoo Vest has something to do with Haruspex, the faction. And that's why you will see these names pop up periodically as you're looking at items. Whenever we go to auction, if we just go highest to lowest, let's just run through auction real quick and see if we can find a few of these. We've got Haruspex Voodoo Vest. That's the one we just looked at. We've got Haruspex Chess Key. They could have just called it Chess Key, but again, it's got Haruspex in the name because it's somehow related to the faction here on Next Island. Haruspex Belfry Hat. Haruspex Sprite Leggings. If you're seeing a pattern, it's that the Haruspex faction tends to have a lot of clothing and a lot of tailoring stuff that it kind of centers around. There's quite a few items that tend to have the word Neo in them. I'm looking to see if there's any on auction at the moment. But I think you guys get the idea by knowing that these words actually mean something and knowing that they're the factions that the lore of Next Island kind of revolves around. It tends to make it all make more sense. And that's the thing, even though I'm not big... Oh, here we go. Skyripper Loyalist, the vehicle. Why couldn't they have just called it a Skyripper? They could have. They could have just called it a Sky Ripper. Why is it called a Sky Ripper Loyalist? Because the Loyalist is a faction here on Next Island. So even if you're not big into the lore like me, I really couldn't care less about lore myself. It does nothing for me. But I know some people get really into it. But just by knowing the basics of the fact that these factions exist and what their names are, kind of gives you some insight into why things are named the way that they're named. And that can make a big difference in your gameplay. It can make a big difference in keeping you from getting confused. It can make a big difference in just making everything seem like a more cohesive unit. And those VIPs, there's nothing on auction named Neo, which seems very odd to me because there's a lot of things in game with the word Neo in them. By knowing that and knowing that these VIPs exist, knowing that you're going to want to get access to these VIPs, that's also going to be very, very important if you're going to be spending a lot of time here on Next Island. It's going to be very, very important to your gameplay, very, very important to your progression. So I wanted to get this video out of the way early. So guys, I'm going to leave it there for today. Sip, sip, smack, smack. Y'all know the rest. Head over to earnped.com. Because when you earn, we earn. It's the best way you guys can help to support us. Simply use the links on EarnPed to go to hideout.tv. Hideout will see that you came from EarnPed and will automatically add us as a redemption for your Hideout points. No additional effort needed on your behalf. You will have to also create a Hideout account. You did not used to have to do that. Now you do. But by using the link on EarnPed to go there, they will see that you came from EarnPed, and they will see that that's likely somewhere you want to send your Hideout points to. Guys, please continue to hit all three of those buttons us YouTubers talk about. The subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified when we post new content. You only have to hit them one time. It doesn't cost you a dime. It takes 1 second, and it is making a massive impact. We are getting more and more people every single week sending us messages in-game telling us that they left the game years ago but saw our videos, got caught up, and came back. We're getting more and more messages every week from people who have never played Entropia, never even heard of it before, but they're seeing our videos on YouTube, and now they're learning how to play the game. They're starting their journey at Camp Icarus, going to North Swamp Camp, Twin Peaks, going out exploring space, coming to Siren, coming to Next Island, exploring all these different places. They're becoming part of the community, they're becoming part of the economy, and it's all because you guys are helping us get that exposure. By hitting that subscribe button and hitting that bell icon, YouTube puts our videos in front of more people who are into PC games, MMOs, and real cash economy gaming. And when you hit that like button on every single video, you do more than just help us combat the haters. You help YouTube give us even more exposure to even more people who are interested in these kind of online gaming platforms and online gaming communities. And it is making a huge difference. People are actively coming to the game and staying because of you guys. Because of you guys, there are people who would normally get frustrated and quit, who are seeing our videos and who are learning to play smarter, not harder, and now they are a permanent member of the Entropia universe. So thank you for all you've done to help support us, but thank you even more for helping to support the game and the community and helping us to get more exposure and grow this community. Guys, we really appreciate it. We'll leave it there for today. Sip, sip, smack, smack. Y'all know the rest. Take care, Stevies.